Pay attention to the woman in the tiara. Her name is Megan Hartley, and this is her bachelorette party. She is surrounded by her closest friends, completely unaware that an unwanted guest has just arrived. It's her ex-boyfriend, Daniel Cruz. He has a Glock in his hand, and he is about to bring the celebration to an abrupt and violent end. A few moments later, he is at Megan's front door with the Glock concealed behind his back. Inside, Megan hears the knock. She makes her way to the door. When she opens it, her face falls. A brief, tense exchange ensues between the two. He takes hold of Megan's wrist and pulls her out of the apartment into the hallway. A couple of moments later, the two are seen walking toward his car. They get into the vehicle, pull out of the parking lot, and disappear into the night, leaving a party to celebrate a bride who was already gone. Inside apartment 214, the party continued for exactly 5 minutes. Music played from a small Bluetooth speaker on the kitchen counter. Laughter and conversation filled the space, masking the silence that had fallen just outside the door. At 10:20 p.m., one of the bridesmaids walked from the living room toward the kitchen. She felt a cool draft from the hallway and noticed the apartment's front door was slightly ajar. Assuming Megan had just stepped out to talk to a neighbor or take a call, she called out her name. There was no response. She called again, louder this time. Another guest noticed her concern and asked for the music to be turned down. The sudden quiet felt heavy. The bridesmaid walked to the doorway and peered into the empty, dimly lit hall. She checked Megan's bedroom and the guest bathroom. Both were empty. Then came the discovery that shifted confusion into real fear. On the granite countertop, next to a half-eaten plate of snacks and party favors, lay Megan's essential items. Her smartphone was there. Her purse, containing her wallet and ID, was beside it. Her car keys were on top of the purse. These were the items a person does not leave behind voluntarily. The first 911 call was logged at 10:50 p.m. A bridesmaid, her voice unsteady, reported her friend missing from her own bachelorette party. The dispatcher processed the call as a high-priority welfare check. While the guests waited for law enforcement, another call was made to Megan's fiancé, Tyler Nichols. He was at a separate event in Tempe, but left immediately. He arrived at the apartment complex within 30 minutes, just as the first Scottsdale police patrol car was pulling into the gate. Responding officers entered apartment 214 and found a group of 11 visibly distressed witnesses. The party decorations and food stood in sharp contrast to the atmosphere of controlled panic. The officers separated the witnesses and began taking preliminary statements. They confirmed the items left on the counter: phone, wallet, keys. They also noted the open front door, which the guests had not closed. One officer began a systematic search of the building's common areas, while his partner requested access to the building's security system from the property manager. By 11:30 p.m., Tyler Nichols had provided officers with a physical description of Megan and confirmed she had no known medical conditions. He was asked about any potential threats, anyone who might want to harm her. He gave them one name: Daniel Cruz. He explained the history of the past relationship, the harassment, and the active restraining order. This name immediately elevated the case. While officers cross-referenced the name in their system, the building's surveillance footage was finally accessed. The officer reviewing the feed located the 10:15 p.m. timestamp from the camera in Megan's hallway. He watched the silent 20-second exchange. He watched the man produce the handgun. He watched as Megan was forcibly pulled from her doorway and dragged toward the stairwell. The case was no longer a welfare check. It was a confirmed, armed abduction. With a name, detectives now had a clear target. A search of state and local databases painted a grim, detailed portrait of the 36-year-old. Records confirmed Cruz was the subject of an active restraining order filed by Megan Hartley in 2017. More importantly, he had been released from Maricopa County Jail just 3 months prior, in July 2021, after serving 90 days for violating that same order. His probation conditions explicitly forbade any contact with Megan. Detectives began processing the apartment, treating it as the primary crime scene. Megan's phone was taken for forensic analysis. Her bridesmaids provided official statements, and 2 of them recounted a crucial detail. She had been receiving unsettling text messages from an unknown number for the past 3 weeks. The messages were vague but ominous, referencing unfinished business and making a mistake. She had dismissed them as Cruz being all talk. The phone records confirmed this. The texts had come from a prepaid device, a burner phone not registered to Cruz's name, making it untraceable in the immediate short term. A separate team began a rapid digital investigation. They examined the social media profiles of Megan and all 11 guests. They found what they were looking for. Earlier in the evening, 2 guests had posted Instagram stories from the party. Both had used a location tag for the apartment complex. Detectives then cross-referenced followers and recent activity, locating a fake account created in September 2019. The account had no posts and followed only Megan and a handful of her close friends. An emergency warrant for the account's IP address data confirmed it was linked to a Wi-Fi network at Cruz's last known address in Casa Grande. He had not just shown up, he had been watching and waiting for an opportunity. By 2 a.m. on Sunday morning, a BOLO alert was broadcast to all law enforcement agencies in central Arizona. It named Daniel Cruz as the armed suspect in a kidnapping and included the license plate and description of his 2014 BMW 328i. The alert specified that the victim, Megan Hartley, was with him and that Cruz should be considered armed and dangerous. Detectives at the Scottsdale police station began the urgent task of tracking the vehicle's path. Using the city's network of traffic cameras and license plate readers, they got their first hit. At 10:45 p.m., just 30 minutes after the abduction, Cruz's BMW was captured on a camera heading east on the Loop 202 freeway. Subsequent pings showed the vehicle merging north onto State Route 87. This was a critical piece of information. State Route 87, known as the Beeline Highway, is a primary artery leading out of the Phoenix metropolitan area and directly into the remote mountainous wilderness of the Tonto National Forest. As the car traveled northeast, it passed Fountain Hills, the last major suburb. Beyond that, the integrated camera network effectively ended. Investigators had to rely on individual private surveillance systems. They began contacting businesses along the highway. A breakthrough came from a gas station in Sunflower, a small, isolated community 40 miles northeast of Scottsdale. At 11:55 p.m., the station's high-definition camera recorded the BMW pulling up to pump number 3. The footage was chillingly clear. Daniel Cruz exited the driver's seat, a handgun visibly tucked into his waistband. He paid in cash at the pump and began to fuel the car. The camera angle also covered the passenger side. Megan Hartley was visible in the seat. She was still wearing her pink pajamas and party tiara. She did not move, she did not exit the vehicle, and she did not look toward the store or the camera. She sat perfectly still, staring forward as Cruz finished, got back in the car, and pulled away, continuing north on State Route 87, disappearing into the total darkness of the National Forest. The gas station footage from Sunflower was the last verifiable sighting of Megan Hartley. Beyond that point, State Route 87 enters the Tonto National Forest, a vast and rugged expanse of nearly 3 million acres. The search operation, coordinated by the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office, shifted to this remote wilderness. Search teams, including canine units and air support, began methodically working the areas accessible from the highway, focusing on campgrounds, trailheads, and unpaved Forest Service roads. The terrain was difficult, characterized by dense chaparral, steep canyons, and inconsistent cellular service, which hampered communication. For 3 days, the search yielded nothing. Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday passed, with no new leads. The BOLO alert for the BMW remained active, but the vehicle seemed to have vanished. Investigators worked on the assumption that Cruz had turned off the main highway and onto one of the hundreds of dirt roads that crisscross the forest. Public alerts were issued, asking hikers, campers, and hunters in the region to be vigilant. On Thursday morning, October 21st, nearly 5 days after the abduction, a U.S. Forest Service ranger on a routine patrol noticed a vehicle partially hidden by trees off an isolated trail near Woods Canyon Lake. The location was miles from the main highway and well outside the initial search grid. The ranger ran the plates. It was Daniel Cruz's 2014 BMW. The vehicle was cold and unoccupied. Investigators were immediately dispatched to the scene. They processed the car for evidence. Inside, on the back seat, they found the small, sparkling tiara Megan had been wearing at her party. On the floorboard of the passenger side, they found an empty gun case. The car itself was undisturbed. There was no blood, no sign of a physical struggle. The discovery of the abandoned car confirmed Cruz and Megan were on foot, but it also opened up a terrifying new possibility. They could be anywhere within hundreds of square miles of dense, unforgiving forest.
The discovery of the abandoned BMW triggered a massive tactical redeployment. The search perimeter, which had been a wide speculative net, instantly contracted into a focused grid centered on Woods Canyon Lake. With the suspect's vehicle secured, the operation shifted from a search for a car to a manhunt for a man on foot. Law enforcement agencies, including county sheriff's deputies and Arizona Department of Public Safety rangers, established a hard containment zone. Roads in and out of the recreation area were blockaded. Air support, including a helicopter with thermal imaging capabilities, began circling the dense pine forest. Canine units were set on the ground, working from the scent at the abandoned car. The search teams knew they were looking for an armed man and his victim, and they proceeded with extreme caution. The terrain was challenging, uneven, littered with rocks, and covered in thick underbrush. For hours, the teams swept the area. Then, late that afternoon, a deputy on foot patrol spotted movement 2 miles northeast of the BMW's location near a rocky outcrop. He identified a male subject matching Cruz's description. The officers advanced, using their vehicles for cover, and issued commands over a loudspeaker. Daniel Cruz was found sitting on the ground, his back against a boulder. He was armed with a .38 caliber revolver. He appeared exhausted, dehydrated, and disoriented, his clothes covered in dirt. Seeing he was surrounded, he offered no resistance. He complied with commands, placed the weapon on the ground, and was taken into custody without a fight. As officers secured him, they saw he was alone. Megan Hartley was not with him. At the Gila County Sheriff's substation, detectives attempted to question him. They had one urgent question: where is Megan? Cruz, now clear-headed and seated in an interrogation room, gave his only response. He invoked his right to remain silent and immediately requested an attorney. The interrogation stopped. Daniel Cruz was booked on charges of kidnapping and aggravated assault, but he provided no statement, no confession, and most critically, no information on Megan's location or her condition. The man who had taken her was in custody, but the victim was still missing. Cruz's silence was a tactical blow to the investigation. With the suspect in a holding cell and refusing to talk, the search for Megan Hartley became a desperate race against time, the elements, and the vast, indifferent wilderness. The operation, which had been a manhunt, was now purely a search and rescue mission. Search teams, knowing Megan had been in the forest for at least a day, possibly more, with no supplies, worked with a new and frantic urgency. The temperatures in that high-altitude region had dropped significantly at night, and hypothermia was now the primary threat. The search grid was redrawn, this time fanning out from the precise location where Cruz had been apprehended. Volunteers on foot, mounted patrols, and canine units worked shoulder to shoulder, combing through dense thickets, ravines, and boulder fields. The helicopter, which had been searching for a heat signature of an armed man, was now looking for a passive heat signature of a person, possibly incapacitated, huddled for warmth. For the rest of Thursday and into Friday morning, they found nothing. The forest offered no clues. Then, on Friday afternoon, October 22nd, a ground team operating nearly 4 miles northeast of Cruz's arrest site made a discovery. A canine unit had shown interest in a dense cluster of ponderosa pine trees. One of the searchers moved in to investigate and saw a patch of pink fabric. It was Megan. She was found huddled at the base of a large pine, partially concealed by low-hanging branches. She was disoriented. Her lips were blue and she was shivering uncontrollably. She was alive, but just barely. Paramedics were airlifted to the remote location. They confirmed that she was suffering from severe dehydration and acute hypothermia. She was conscious but unable to speak coherently. As they treated her and prepared her for extraction, one fact was clear. She was physically unharmed, with no signs of assault. She had been left in the woods alone for an unknown hours of time. The searchers had found her, but the full story of what happened in those 5 days was still locked away, partly with a silent suspect and partly with a victim too weak to speak. After she was medically cleared, Megan Hartley provided investigators with a full account of the 5-day ordeal. She stated that Cruz had contacted her repeatedly, threatening to harm her fiancé and friends if she refused to speak with him. On the night of the party, he demanded she come outside, threatening to enter the apartment and make a scene if she did not comply. Fearing for her guests, she opened the door to reason with him, at which point he grabbed her and forced her to the car. During the long drive, he was erratic, alternating between apologies and accusations, insisting they could start over and disappear together. When they reached the remote area near Woods Canyon Lake, he became paranoid, eventually telling her on Thursday morning to walk into the woods and wait, saying he had to figure things out. She complied out of fear. He left her with nothing, no food, no water, no jacket, before walking away. In February 2022, Daniel Cruz appeared before a Maricopa County judge. Facing an overwhelming case built on surveillance footage, digital evidence, and victim testimony, he accepted a plea agreement. He pled guilty to charges of kidnapping, aggravated assault, and unlawful imprisonment. He was sentenced to 18 years in the Arizona Department of Corrections. Megan provided a victim impact statement that was read to the court, but she did not attend the sentencing. The incident's impact was permanent. The wedding, once scheduled for early 2022, was indefinitely postponed. In December 2021, Megan Hartley and Tyler Nichols ended their engagement, citing the insurmountable emotional toll of the abduction. Soon after, Megan sold her belongings, left her job, and relocated out of state to be closer to her family. She has not returned to Arizona.